welcome everybody. We want every minute of this fantastic call to count today. Thank you so much for joining. We have a lot of people probably going to be joining us in the next few minutes. And of course, we're going to be recording this call. So thank you for joining us at ShePlace and SheMoney. My name is Jackie Zahner. I am the founder of ShePlace, SheMoney here in Utah. I am in a very snowy Park City, Utah today. And just want to welcome you. Thank you for spending your lunch hour or afternoon hour or morning hour, or we have someone from Nigeria. So, oh my gosh, I think it's nighttime for you. So thank you for joining as well. We're really excited to be having this conversation with my dear friend, Angie MacArthur, and her business partner, Luana. I'm talking about overcoming overwhelm. And with that, I just want to welcome you to the call today. Thank you for being here and turn it over to ShePlace SheMoney, COO, and my bestie, Madison Lemansky.
Thanks so much, Jackie. Sorry, I'm ground control over here, so it takes me a minute to find the right thing I'm clicking on. Thanks for your patience. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm so grateful that you joined. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the SheMoney Workshop series. And before we begin, I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the unceded ancestral lands that most of us are calling in from. At least Jackie, Angie, and myself are calling in from the Ute Tribal Nation and the northwestern band of the Shoshone Nation ancestral lands. While Luana, however, is actually calling in from Northern California, from the ancestral lands of the Pomo Tribal Nation. Did I say that right, Luana? Okay, great. So this land acknowledgement is a practice and a small gesture we're committed to doing here at ShePlace as a way to honor the history of our nation and work toward truth and reconciliation as a country. And we invite you all to consider joining us in this practice if you're called to. So we are so thrilled to have so many powerhouse business leaders, entrepreneurs, community builders, friends, and family on the call today. And I do hope you consider this online event a bit of a teaser, and that you will consider joining us in person on Wednesday, March 15th, which we actually were supposed to host tonight in Salt Lake City, but we had to cancel because of the big storm that's happening in Utah right now. And so I hope you all are staying safe and off the roads if you can today. So as Jackie mentioned, my name is Madison Lemansky, and it's my privilege to work alongside Jackie and our incredible team. Shakayla Smith is calling in as well. I'm COO of our brand SheMoney and our sister network ShePlace. And I want to start by thanking our title sponsor and earliest champion of our efforts and this workshop series, Zions Bank, and especially Scott Anderson and Sui Lang Pinoke, who have supported our work from the very beginning. And I have to say, Scott and Sui Lang are really committed to economic equity in our state, and we are so grateful for their support. I want to also wish everyone a happy Black History Month and read to you a quote, if you will give me grace for 1 second so I can get this slideshow open for you. Let's see here. I think just a few more clicks and I'll be in. Let's see. Oh, darn it. Sorry, I'm not sure what's happening with my screen share. It's like this itty bitty. Oh, wait a second. Here we go. I'm able to open it up. Can you all see Jackie's face on the screen? You'll give me a little nod. Be helpful. Thank you so much. Here's me and my QR code if you want to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me. I would love that. And wanted to share with you this quote that I really live by from the late, great Maya Angelou. She said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And that quote just feels like my own personal motto. I think we're all here because we're struggling to keep up with our day-to-day lives. And modern life is a grind. And so this quote really reminds me to give myself some grace and just focus on being my truest and best self. So really wanted to share that with you all to kick us off, and in honor of Black History Month. So I'm so excited for today's workshop, Overcoming Overwhelm, Becoming Your Own Best Thinking Partner. And we're so lucky to have two incredible facilitators with us here today, Angie MacArthur and Luana. And I'd love to take a moment and of course, thank them from Core Thinking Partners. I'd love to take a moment to read you Angie and Luana's bios, just so you have a taste of who you'll be hearing from today. And these are their LinkedIn QR codes. So you're welcome to click on those if you'd like to connect with Angie and Luana. So I'm going to read here. Angie is the co-founder and principal at Core Thinking Partners and is the co-author of the books Collaborative Intelligence and Reconcilable Differences. She is certified as a mindfulness teacher and has trained over 40 thinking partners in her proprietary coaching methodology. And we're so grateful to you, Angie, for being here. And Luana, who I have just gotten the pleasure to get to know over the course of this process, has been so beautifully bringing us back to our intention of this event of how can we handle our own overwhelm as we're moving in to this workshop today. So thank you, Luana. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you, and I'm so grateful to have you here. And I'd love to read your bio. So Luana is an executive thinking partner at Core, and she uses curiosity, humor, candid observations, somatic experience, story, and compassion as she works with corporate leaders developing essential resources. Luana facilitates workshops in trust, charismatic connecting, developing inquiry skills, honing thinking talents, navigating conflict, and building inclusive cultures. And we're so grateful to you both for being here. So thank you so much, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Madison. If you can jump to the next slide, that'd be great. Maybe the next one. Okay, there we go. This is a workshop. Well, first of all, welcome to all of you. I'm really excited that you're here. I'm excited to be here because this is a wonderful theme that guides all of our lives. I'm a type A personality, and I'm a go, go, go kind of a person. I'm an Aries, and I want to do it all. And I was taught by my parents and my parents' parents to do it all. And I always get to the point where I say, I can't do it all. I'm in overwhelm. I'm well above what I can even possibly get done today. So this is a common problem or a common statement for all of us as we continue in our lives. So we can jump to the next two slides. There we go. One more. Thank you, Madison, first of all, for driving this deck, because it helps so much with you doing it, you being the extra set of hands and fingers. So where are we going with this workshop? We're going to partner with the possible, with ourselves, the possibility of ourselves. And we're going to do this through exploring two different mindsets and also mind shifts. The first one is a shift one, which is from a lack mindset to a possibilist mindset. And a lot of times we walk in, we're like, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough resources, enough people, and that's really the lack mindset. And so we're going to really shift from that to possibilist. And we're going to do that from awareness of our own personal narratives. Sometimes we get into a rut thinking, and we're going to shift that to river thinking, really navigating. You know the rut. I know you guys, when you're driving, you end up in mud, you end up in snow. One of your car tires ends in some kind of a rut, and it's hard to get moving. Same thing in our lives. We end up in this rut. And so how do we shift that? Because we all end up in ruts. We're human beings. So we're all going to end up there. How do we shift out of it? And then how to use high quality inquiry to shift from rut to river? How do we ask questions of ourselves? Then the next shift that we're going to take, which is called core conversations. From default thinking, because I have my own default thinking, and I know all of you do. We all have that default tape that we go to. From default thinking to expanding our perspective. That's going to be the second part of this presentation. Using an inquiry compass, we have questions that you can ask yourself. The inquiry compass is my personal cheat sheet, which I got from Angie. It's not like I created it. Angie MacArthur is the individual who created this cheat sheet. where I put down and I ask myself questions to help me out of the rut into the river, or a flow toward an answer. Then the next part is an invitation to have core conversations with another SheMoney participant in the and within the next month. Okay, next slide. This is where we're going today. Common beliefs in overwhelm, which we're going to address these. If I don't do this, I will fail. Yeah, how many of you have, just raise a hand, give a thumbs up. Yeah, exactly. If I don't do this, I will fail. I have to be good at everything. As an African American, I was taught you have to do 200%. Like, don't just be 100%, be 200%. And that's the only way you're going to succeed. That works and doesn't work at the same time, right? I have to be good at everything. I have to manage everything. You know, all of these that you see written here, we've all said, I'm sure. You're an entrepreneur. I'm sure you've said it or you felt it. But we're going to work with all of these ways of thinking, which is a default thinking. All right, next slide. I'm going to give it over actually on the next slide. Introduce you to Angie. Take it away, Angie.
Great. Thanks, Luana. And hello, everyone. So we're going to jump back, to the previous slide, Madison. Thank you. It's a true honor to be with you in this conversation because this is the real stuff. You know, all those beliefs that Luana just put up on screen, you know, feeling those, being caught in that every day, all the time. It's just, you know, what can't not lead us to overwhelm? That was like a double negative, but you know what I mean? And so the work today around shifting isn't like a light switch you can go, boom, okay, I'm in a new positive frame of mind. I see all the, like, you know, ways in which I don't need to be overwhelmed. Unfortunately, we can't just do it that quickly. We can practice. And so the first mindset shift I would love for you to entertain is just about relating to yourself in overwhelm. Compassion, that place of, wow, yeah, I am overwhelmed. In a mindset shift, there's three things that are very magical and important for us to pay attention, no pun intended to. Attention, that is where action is really happening. It brings us into this present moment so we can actually have choice of what happens next. Intention, and those who joined us in January, we spent a lot of time at the SheMoney event in intention. That idea of what is fueling you? Why are you doing this? Where are you going? How are you doing that to go forward in your own life? So that intention place. And then, of course, both of these combined with imagination. Where is it you want to go? Without imagination, we don't have a possible future. So the magic of bringing these three things together in order to shift your mindset is a really critical step. And I want to bring this home by introducing you to the practice of Aikido. Those of you who don't know it, it's a wonderful practice. We write about it a lot in our book because it's about using energy of your opponent. And in this case, the energy of the opponent is overwhelm to be redirected into a positive way. It's about relating to, as opposed to overwhelmed with. I'd love for everyone to shake out their hands. It's afternoon, probably getting kind of the midday, and then grab your wrist with one of your hands. Grab it tightly, like you really mean it. This is overwhelm, saying hello to you today. What is it I have to do? How much time do I have? I have kids to pick up. I have this, I have that. Really get that firm grip. This is overwhelm, saying, hi, Luana. I'm here. I'm here to overwhelm you. I want to ask you a question. How much of your attention is where your grasp is? Just call out numbers. How much?
10%.
Sorry, what was that?
10%.
Okay. Yeah. So if you've written, but it's taking up, how much of your energy is it taking to really grasp onto your wrist as hard as you possibly can?
A lot, 80%.
80%. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, and this is where this becomes really critical. How much of you is actually free? What portion of your body is actually free?
Most of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. Yes. This practice in Aikido is really critical because that is what attention does. It takes whatever has the toughest grasp on it takes most of our attention. When in reality, a lot of what we need to remember is actually most of us is free. This is what's going to help us shift from that lack mindset to what's possible. I do this in meetings all the time. I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm this and that, I've not, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And it's like, oh, I feel very stuck. That stuck energy, and we're going to now move on to the next slide, can really play with our personal narratives. And this is what we're going to dive into now. Because when we feel stuck and we feel that sense of lack, we quickly move into story about what that could mean. So now we're going to go to the next slide. And this idea that stories happen in an instant, and then there's just the data. Here's a cat, and stories we make up really quickly about that I see a black cat. Oh my God, that means I'm black, and I'm supposed to sign this contract today. Oh shit, that means it's going to go south. Like, we quickly go down that road, and this happens like that. So, we've all heard glass half empty, glass half full, and we'll move on to the next slide. Luana mentioned it before. There's rut and river stories. And the difference is rut is stories that we tell about that data, the black cat, that keeps us limited in our choices and prevents growth. And with overwhelm, this can get really important because it's all about lack of time, lack of ability, it plays with our mind and keeps us very closed. And again, we can't just flip on a light switch to go to river story right away, but just the courage to notice what kind of story you're telling yourself about that data. River story is one that creates more possibility, more exploration. It takes courage. The root of the word courage is kur, heart. So to start from heart, I have the courage to tell myself, I'm really telling myself a rut story right now. Next slide. And this, again, I just want to emphasize here how quickly this happens. We can take something as simple as this gray arrow. Gray arrow, that's what I see. Depending on maybe what happened in my last call or my last business meeting, I can see the same arrow in over on the right-hand part of the screen. I can say it's confused, or it's got options. I can say it's unhappy or it's tired. And again, these can feel like glass half empty or glass half full stories. But as I attribute this to my co-author, Dr. Donna Markova, she said, I'm not an optimist or a pessimist, but I do believe in Possibilist. And I think that's very true, is it's not that one's bad and the other's good. It's just what is creating more options for you in that moment? How do you want to process that feeling of overwhelm? So next slide is going to take us into the ladder of inquiry. So how do you start catching yourself in these moments of when you're creating these limiting stories and use quality inquiry to take yourself out of it? So I'm going to turn it back over to Luana. You're on mute, my dear.
There we go. I love the ladder of inference. It's one of those things I live by, along with the Maya Angelou quote. I live by this. I look at observable data, and especially when I'm in freak out. Actually, I'm going to back up a little bit. There are two kinds of freak out that most of us do, and it's been recognized by a lot of researchers, emotional researchers like Brene Brown and some others, where there's the freak out when you're in overwhelm or you're in the weeds, and then there's a freak out where you're completely blown out. You have no skills whatsoever. So what I'm going to talk about right now is what happens when you can get yourself to in the weeds. Because when you are totally freaked out and you are blown out, like you don't even remember your own name. I mean, how many of you have said that? I don't even remember my own name. I don't remember the last time I went to the bathroom. I don't remember, like, there's a lot of things. We're just such overwhelm. Those are the moments you take deep breaths. Those are the moments in which you step back. Literally, I take 2 steps back And that kind of helps me. And Brene Brown addresses this beautifully. But when we're in the weeds, we still have cognitive abilities. We can go to our cerebral cortex and get answers. In overwhelm, we're in the amygdala. We're in an amygdala takeover hijack. So that's why we have to really take care of ourselves and take a step back. Get yourself to a place, and you know that for yourself, where you can get to the place of observing data. So I observe data, and then I realize there's data I select. And then there's stories I add to this data that I've selected. Now, if I'm not careful with those stories I add, I can take myself further into overwhelm. But if I'm careful with them, I'm like, okay, let me keep the aspects open, my prospects open. Then there are assumptions about my stories, like, oh my gosh, I tripped this morning, the sun didn't come out, and there's 3 feet of snow, and the whole day is going to be bad. I've heard people say things like that. I have said things like that. And then I draw my conclusion. Okay, whole day is awful. And it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. And then there are beliefs that I adopt. And then I continue with it with actions based on my beliefs. And if I have to go back down to uncue myself, excite myself back to, wait a minute, what did I observe? I only saw X, Y, and Z. And then what data am I going to select? Okay, let me prioritize what I need to do next. So do you see how I'm analyzing myself to see, what do I need to do next? I also reframe in the weeds. If I'm in the weeds, I will usually walk through a space, or I'm in my room, or right before I come online to do a facilitation like this, if I'm in overwhelm. And I say, eye of the needle. It's my way of going, I can get through this. Eye of the needle. I'm only in the weeds. I'm not in overwhelm. It's to the point of I'm blown out. I'm in the weeds, and I'm going to reframe overwhelm so that I can just say, I'm going to go through the eye of the needle, right? That impossible thing. My whole body's going to fit through an eye of the needle. But it just centers me. I literally touch my head. You can find your own secret thing that you do. Mine is just like that. And it reminds me to calm myself down, look at observable data, but the data that I've selected, the stories I've added. The other thing that I do, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm in so much overwhelm, I just don't know what to do, I tell people I'm in full flow. It's a yoga thing. I'm just in full flow. All right, next slide. Now this is where you're going to do a reflection. We're going to take 1 minute for this reflection. Oh, I forgot to talk about something first. In the chat, I believe it's there, Madison, right? In the chat, there is a workbook for you. And this is going to be sitting inside your workbook, this particular slide, along with some other slides. I believe it's 4 or 5 pages long, but it's where you can circle, you can write in it, you can print it off. So if you haven't gotten to in the chat, or you haven't received this prior to this facilitation, it's there for you in the chat. So we're going to.
May I just add quickly, it's fillable, so people could do it online or print it out, whatever's more comfortable.
Beautiful. Thank you, Madison. So you're going to take a moment, and you're going to look at the SheMoney Wellness Wheel. And you're going to say, just circle or star the 2 to 3 areas you are telling yourself, where you're telling yourself rut stories. Because we all have them. And then where are you telling yourself river stories? So just choose 1 to 3 spaces or places where you can circle, these are my rut stories. I have rut stories here. Oh, and I have river stories here. So I'm just giving you a minute, and I'm counting down. I'm looking at my second hand on my watch. And if you have the inclination to circle all of them, choose your top 3 or 1 or 2 in terms of red stories. Okay, about 10 more seconds. I'm going to turn it over to Angie now. We're going to talk about different perspectives. Next slide.
Yeah, so that just awareness of is really critical. Just again, noticing where your attention is. Where am I telling myself red stories that are limiting? Where am I telling myself river stories where I feel expansive? And maybe doing some reflection on the difference. Why is it maybe that you're telling yourself red stories in certain areas and others you're telling yourself river stories? We now want to offer sort of a second framework to look at overwhelm, which is how do you open up your perspective? How do you even see new possibilities? And we all have questions that we love to ask ourselves. They're our default mode of thinking. We've all heard that phrase, thinking with people who think differently is great. It leads to better outcomes. That's all true, but the reality is it's actually really hard. It's really hard to ask yourself different questions than you typically ask yourself, which is why we want to offer some tools to help you do that. The other thing that we want to point out here is the quality of the questions you ask yourself. So it's not only the kind of questions, but the quality of your questions. And one of the secrets to being a really good thinking partner to yourself and to other people is the quality of question you're asking. So Luana is going to take us through how inquiry, just that statement, is not all created equal, and the difference of high quality inquiry versus what low quality inquiry might look like. So next slide, Maddie.
Yeah, I know. There we go. Thank you. Let's see. So I did unmute myself. There we go. How many of you have asked the question, why did I do that? Like if something comes up and you've done something that didn't work out, you're like, why did I do that? That is what we would call a low quality inquiry. And I'm going to say it's low quality because it almost punishes you. It almost goes in and slaps your little hand on, slaps your own hand. Like, why did you do that? And it's not like, oh, why did you do that? Let me take a look at that. Let me come with curiosity. So when I find myself going, oh, Luana, you did that again, right? I'm almost, as my friend says, girl, you are abandoning yourself again. Like, don't ask questions like that of yourself. Do yourself a favor and ask the kinds of questions that elicits a curiosity about what happened. Why did I do that? So do you want to fail? Like I would say, I have said that to myself. Well, do you want to fail at this? I mean, come on, girl, oh man, my 5-year-old self, my 16-year-old self, they're all like, oh no, and they're all nervous. Versus being my adult self that can say, hey, girlfriends, I have this covered. We're going to figure this out. I'm going to ask a question that's in curiosity. Another low quality inquiry is, don't think it would be better if you did X, Y, and Z. Number one, I hate that question when somebody asks me that question. It's a leading question and it assumes that I have not thought through things, but it's not the best question for me to ask myself. But really, I'm going to just shift over to the high quality. You want to ask inquiry. You want to ask questions that are curious. My view is X. How do you see it? Or right now, I'm looking at this as X, Y, and Z. If I were to step out and look at it like Maya Angelou would look at it, or Oprah Winfrey, because I do that. I literally go, what would Oprah Winfrey do right here? What would Maya Angelou do right here? What would Nona Hendrix do right here? What would Prince do right here? I go to these icons and I go, what would they do in this situation? This is how I see it. How would they see it? What are you, the perspective? Why are you the thing that wish you had? Really from a different perspective, ask a question. What led you to do what you did? Like as an exploration, why did you do it that way, Luana? And give myself some good old-fashioned compassion and grace. Well, I did that because of X, Y, and Z. Did it turn out for you? Not the way I'd anticipated. Okay, girlfriend, but you tried. That was one step. You see how I'm shifting my mindset into inquiry? What would it take to do X, promote action? And sometimes you need to find a friend. Sometimes you need to find a thinking partner or a buddy that's going to help you do what you need to do. And since I'm a lone wolf, that's a big one for me. I have to really go, okay, let me call and ask Angie for help on this one, or let me call and ask so-and-so for help. But I know I'm going to grow. Encouraging understanding, right? These are high quality inquiries of yourself. And also you can use these questions for your staff. You can use these questions at home. The low quality inquiry, you can go, which ones do I tend to ask? Okay, next slide. And this is Angie.
I just want to highlight one of the ways in which I find that we really put ourselves into a corner, right, which is the opposite of creating possibility, are those low quality forced choice questions. Would you rather, my husband asked them to me as a joke, would you rather be stabbed by 22 porcupines or, be hung by a moose? Like, forced questions creates a very limiting and lack mindset. And so would you rather go out for a nice meal and spend money on that, or would you rather buy a new blouse? And so it can, those bifurcating questions create anxiety for, and so I just want to point those out because those are so common in our personal narratives. So great, thank you, Luana. And so that's, how to open your mind to have a lovely conversation with yourself, like you would a girlfriend. Now we want to talk a little bit about the kinds of questions we ask ourselves. And so this is a tool we call the inquiry compass, because we all, and I'm sure these words are not going to be new to you, analytic, procedural, relational, innovative. And we all have these default modes in which we're really comfortable coming from that particular domain of thinking or asking ourselves questions from that particular domain. So my girlfriend, Robin, who's on this call, she's brilliant relationally, and naturally she'll intuitively ask all those relational questions. How's this going to impact this person? What about this? What about that? And then I, go have a walk with Jackie, and she just is all these innovative questions. She just takes like my thinking and blows it up bigger to the point where I kind of go, that's too big. So, that's how friends serve us well, is when they can come from a domain, maybe where we have a blind spot. Because I know for myself, I naturally go to the analytic and get in my way. The moment I try and go big, I go, well, that's not going to work because of this, this, and this, or that's going to take too much time. So when we have a default way of thinking and we have a blind spot, we can limit how we're looking at a situation, or in this particular case around overwhelm. So one of my blind spots is procedural thinking. So where I get most easily overwhelmed is with time management. I have read every friggin' book on time management. I've done every Franklin Covey course. I've, tried to adopt many methodologies, and I've gotten way better. It's not a talent of mine, but I've gotten better. But it still stresses me out because time to me is kind of this big glump. It just is like, I look at a calendar and I can't go day by day. I just go, oh, it's all happening in January. So knowing that about myself, I had to bring on a lot of partners to help me think this way, or rely on people like my husband who are very good procedurally. But if I don't have them to think with, I can have these questions that are my cheat sheet to really open up that side of myself, not to stress me out, but to open my perspective. And so this walking around the compass is a way of what, call whole brain thinking. How do you get more options? Where do you stress? What are your blind spots? These are all courageous questions to ask ourselves because we can't do it all and we can't be good at everything and we can't think in all ways. So let's have ways in which we support ourselves, making actual intentional, attentional movement and mindset shifts, that's a tongue twister, to the imagined future that we want to create. In preparation for this time together today, and we can move on to this next slide, and I realize there's a lot of text here, which is why this particular slide is in the handout. Maddie did a beautiful job with this. But the next slide, in really talking about money, if we drill it down to where SheMoney is really opening the aperture for how we can see things. This is that same work translated into these domains, which may be very helpful. So, how does this dollar connect us? If you have a lot of relational perspective, it may be very easy for you to spend money on things like going to dinner with your friends or going on trips, and because it's all around how that money is going to connect you with other beings. If you have a lot of innovative thinking, it's that, buying things or that take you into that future state. Imagine if. What can this dollar do? The analytic. How far can I spread this dollar? I mean, my mother-in-law makes fun of me because of my Norwegian heritage. Like, it's just like, you make a dollar stretch as far as you possibly can. Because it's really important to me to understand the potency of $1. It's just, I get lit up thinking about that. Drives my sisters crazy. Procedural, what is this dollar's job? And this is obviously a lot of CFOs have a lot of procedural thinking. How is this giving us an ROI? I'd love for sort of, maybe at this point, we were going to move into small groups, but maybe just before we do, to talk about some of these questions, to talk about how some of this is landing with each of you. But maybe before we jump into small groups, Jackie, just because of your, history with money and wealth and how we all see this, could you share a little bit about how you're seeing this?
Yeah, thank you, Angie. I was just posting this in a chat, and it just, to see this come alive, right? Like this beautiful alignment with, again, I'm very familiar with your work at Thinking Talents, and I posted your book in the chat. But to understand self and then say, how do these things, how I show up, what do I naturally lead with? What is true for me? What gives me energy, and connect it into money behaviors? Honestly, I've never really seen this work presented, and I just like, this slide makes me light up, but it's so true because that is me, right? Like, and that's, money is an expression of our values, and our values, kind of live within our, ourselves, and, in our own biological and physiological makeup. So I'll just say with this, I'm curious how it lands with other people, but it's making those connections between understanding self, and then how does, in some way, again, not to stretch it too far in the money direction, but how are the behaviors, your money behaviors, how does that connecting back into that self and that sense of identity, and things that are serving you and things that are not serving you in terms of behaviors, and then showing up, like you said, and Luana said, not with this, like, oh, I'm doing this again. I'm at this, I'm at that. I'm beating myself up. I suck at this. I'm not good with money. I don't know how to do this too. Why is it that, when I'm unhappy, I'll go to name droppers, which is what I do all the time. I also go to name droppers when I'm very happy, by the way, it's a closed door. But I just love how you're making these connections and inviting us to think about behaviors in the context of our thinking talents, which is novel and very interesting to me.
Yeah, and then to loop it back to this feeling of overwhelm is, because everyone, no matter what business you're in or entrepreneurship, the relationship to money. And so noticing, the overwhelm where maybe some of this relationship to money is kicking you into overdrive, and where you may, could ask yourself better questions, and then again, invite partnership with others in this community, because, having a diversity of thought and someone asking you questions from an area where you naturally don't ask yourself can be very potent to drive that mindset shift. Great. So Luana, you want to talk through what we're going to have them do in small groups, and then Madison, do your little magic of putting us into small groups?
Sure. And Madison, while you're doing those two things, can you also flip to the next slide? Okay, thank you, Madison. I appreciate this. So you're going to go into groups. You're going to remember where you circled the rut, right? You're going to remember that, and also the river. I want you to ask 3 questions. One of them is, what kind of questions do you tend to ask yourself when you're thinking through something? When you're thinking through what's happening at work, in your business, when you're thinking through what's happening for yourself physically, when you're thinking through what's happening for yourself relationally. So what kinds of questions do you tend to ask yourself when thinking through something? And then which type of questions do you avoid? I mean, I know I move way into analytical. I'm very much a relational and innovative thinker. I can take this planet, turn it inside out in my mind. I'm a very out of the box thinker and can create all sorts of things that aren't here on the planet. That's where I go. But when I'm stressed, suddenly I abandon those 2 strengths and I go into analytical. And I need to remember to bring them with me as I go into analysis, because I do need to go into analysis sometimes, but I need to bring that creativity with me. So which do you avoid? Which causes you stress? Like if someone asks a bunch of procedural questions and I don't have the answer, it causes me stress. So I use that cheat sheet when I'm going into a meeting, when I know I'm going to speak to someone who's very procedural. And I try to answer some of those questions that I think they're going to ask. So which kinds of questions cause you distress? Then one action. So those are the questions you're going to analyze. And then one action. What is one thing you want to remind yourself to do every day to support your mindset shifting? You're right, that is a difficult one. Mindset shifting. What do you want to do every day? I have a little thing that I do, and if you can connect something physical with it, it helps. Like, for example, I live by myself in the middle of a forest. So if I could scream bloody murder, no one would come to me. No one would come because they wouldn't hear me. So whenever I hear a bump in the night, and I always do because there are mountain lions and deer and bear and you name it, they walk across my deck and everything else. When I hear a sound, I get very nervous. And I've attached to taking a really deep breath the moment I hear a sound I don't recognize. And that keeps my nervous system functioning as high as it possibly can so that my cerebral cortex stays open. So I have all of my available possibilities accessible to me. So that's just a small little teeny weeny little example of when I move to stress, what I do is I take a deep, deep, deep breath. And now it's automatic. I hear a noise and I just go, and take a deep breath, which centers me, and I'm able to function. So that's an example, a small example of what I'm going to do, what I do every single day when I hear a sound at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, what the hell is that? So you're going to go from awareness to intention to imagine what you would do. So we're going to be in groups. Maddie, are you ready? This is one of the reasons why I chat a little bit to get so that we can go into different rooms.
Great. And we'll just take about three minutes a person or so, and then we'll reconvene at 5 minutes too for some comments, and then Luana and I will be happily to stay on, but we do want to respect your time and close at the top of the hour, but we'll stay on for whoever wants to additionally chat or share stories.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're just letting everyone rejoin from the breakout groups. Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope that was enough time. People have 30 seconds or so. Oh, 7 seconds and they'll be back. Ooh, more faces this time around. Welcome back, everybody.
Oh, fantastic. That was delicious for me. I'd love to kind of hear comments or what people chatted about, what awarenesses they have. And
I can go. Can you hear?
yeah,
So we had two other ladies in our session, and we talked about health and how we need to prioritize our health, and it's just as important as our money, and also not be difficult on ourselves, like be kind to yourself. And that's really important because it starts with being kind to yourself, and the rest will follow.
I love that. And it's, it sounds like, of course, but the reality is, unless we're kind to ourselves, we can't go from rut to river, right? It's part of that recipe. Thank you, Anu. Anyone else?
I'll share. And Jackie got cut off, but really, we reflected on kind of the women typically are very relationship oriented and how we're dealing with money. But, really those stories that we tell each other or tell ourselves, how critical it is to, where we are and moving forward. And she just really called out the work that you're doing with her. So I appreciate that, and certainly what I will take with me today. So thank you.
Thank you for showing up fully, Elizabeth. Any others?
I can go. I mean, I was talking with Luana, and it was interesting to observe as I was explaining things. Obviously, she got onto my little rut, which was a word that as soon as it had come out of my mouth, I kind of made that note, but it had already come out. And it was nice to kind of have that conversation and find out, since I did end up with really putting out something that would fall under the river category, it worked out really well for me. But it was just wonderful to have someone kind of point out quickly, like, well, this word kind of makes it fall into the rut category. So I'm kind of glad to see that you found how to make it into a river. So thank you, Luana.
And I just want to emphasize, we can't edit out the rut in us. And this exercise or awareness or model is not meant to make us be like 100% river all the time. That's not real. The key here is that awareness. And I love that Luana was able to help you see that in the moment. So we have choice and we have awareness. And sometimes it's okay to be in rut for a while. It's truth. It's, where we're at. So thank you. That's a beautiful comment. I just want to turn it over to Luana to see if she wants to share, her experience of how that awareness came for her.
I think working as I was talking to her, I said, I am a thinking partner, so I do tend to listen to silence, not only words, but also silences. And in that, listening to anyone or everyone listening, you kind of catch those words. And it's not just her in this moment, it's all of us. I have done it myself. I've caught my own words so many times. And one of the things I didn't get a chance to say earlier, which I think is extraordinarily important, is we are our own best asset. I mean, we are. And really taking care of ourselves, that includes psychological caring, which is when we do have a rut story. Like sometimes I go into my rut. I mean, sometimes I'll actually go home, put music on, and go so deep into my rut so that I can just like wallow in it for a second. But I've got literally 4 minutes of that music to rut myself. And then I must come out of that music. So the next song is going to pull me out. Because sometimes I need to be in it to kind of really feel it. And they go, okay, this is uncomfortable. This is so uncomfortable. And it's not going to be the best possible use of my time and my energy. And another thing really, really quickly that I think of all the time is all of the work that my great-great-great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my grandmother and my mother did to ensure what I can do. And I don't want to diminish that in any way. So I have a driver that's inside of me, and each one of us has a driver. So that's what I was thinking as I was listening to the woman talk about the spices from her home, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's a driver, you know, that's a beautiful, beautiful driver. Thank you.
Beautiful. Let's take one or two more questions, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Madison so we can close. And again, we'll stay on for more questions or insights. We have hungry ears, so.
Angie, I have a question or something to share from my group. And I just want to apologize for not being on camera for the first half hour, because I thought you'd approve that I was in like spinal twists and downward facing dogs listening intently. But this is a way that I deal with my overwhelm, is to actually do some yoga. So I was listening, but I was doing yoga, and then jumped on FaceTime with my group, and because I was taking care of myself, because that's what you would counsel me to do. But we were talking about having a personal board of directors. And so that Angie would be my chief strategy officer. Jackie's my chief innovation officer, like where I don't have these skills, my friends are my board of directors. So I would think that within this ShePlace and SheMoney environment, we can be great boards of directors personally for one another.
Beautiful. That's perfectly said. I would love to bow in respect to each of you. It's in the spirit of overwhelm. It's difficult to even take an hour in the middle of the day to join us for this conversation today. Luana and I and Madison and Jackie and those at SheMoney, I just am really blessed. I love this work, and I love when people show up fully, and there's no more precious gift than time. So thank you for giving us your time today. And I will turn it over to Maddie.
Thank you so much, Angie. That was so wonderful. And I'm going to be printing the worksheets and revisiting those graphs. And I too did some thinking talents work with Angie to really identify where I'm strong and where I'm weak. And we mapped it, Jackie and I kind of want to do it with my husband too. I think that could be really interesting. So thank you so much for these tools. As Angie said, we're going to let you all go at the top of the hour and return for some questions, but I just wanted to invite you all to join our network. SheMoney is a consultancy and content platform dedicated to financial equity, and ShePlace is our professional network where we welcome you to join us. And that's kind of the best place to get up to date information on all that we're offering. We want to thank Suilang Pinoke again, who was able to join the call with Zions Bank, for being our partner sponsor and champion. Thanks, Jackie, for founding this company and trusting me. And we hope that you all find these workshops valuable, and we will be following up with a survey and really invite your feedback. So thank you so much for joining. We're grateful to have you all here.
And please come to the live event on March 15th. Hopefully no snowstorms.
Thank you, Angie. Yeah, we had to postpone tonight's event with the winter storm advisory and to prevent Luana from flying in this horrible weather, but we hope to see you all on March 15th. Encourage you to invite your friends and family to join us as well. And thanks again.